Hello and welcome to the show. Today's episode is going to have some noise in the background. Because of course I'm not in my usual recording space. And then apart from that, the house is being cleaned at the moment. So expect to hear noises coming in from all over the place. So, welcome to the show. Once you're done listening, remember to subscribe for free. The show is available on Spotify, Google, or Apple Podcasts, or any podcast player of your choice. And then also remember to give me a 5-star review because so far I'm giving you more value than what you have paid for, which is absolutely nothing because the show is free. Now, today on the show, we're going to go back to the audience question by Bernadette Mutsambiwa, and it's going to force us to look into the pros and the cons of either validating a business idea first before you set up a physical location. That's for those businesses that you actually do need a physical location. So, if you are a lawyer or an accountant, you don't necessarily need to have a physical location. I guess so long as you have a comfortable office out of the home or some adjoining room to your house, you can walk out of that. But there are some people, if you run a clinic, you can't do that at the back of your house because ethical guidelines, medical guidelines don't allow for that. And then Bernadette Mutsambiwa wants to set up a diagnostics laboratory. So, that involves collecting samples, poop, pee, blood, stem cells, you name it. So, there are going to be ethical and legal considerations that are involved, health and safety considerations that are involved. So, she absolutely does need a physical location. So, we're going to look into the pros and cons of either validating the idea first before you set up your physical location, or whether you so excuse me, go ahead and set up the physical location first and then sort out all the marketing challenges later. How do you get clients and those sorts of things. So today's episode is going to be a pro and cons episode before we address the how of the matters. So today we're looking at pros and cons. Future episodes we're going to look at the how. If you're going to validate it first, what are the steps 1, 2, 3, 4 to validate? If you're going to set up the physical location first, rent the building, buy your equipment, all that, and then set out to try and market or advertise. What are the steps you do? The 1, 2, 3, and the 4. So today is just a pro and con episode. Now, I've been away for a while. I'm sure you guys have noticed you haven't heard from me for about 3, 4 days. And that's because we were providing media coverage for a British Council event on inclusive education. So, if this is your first time listening to the show, yes, I am a sales coach and a business consultant, but I started off my my entrepreneurial journey as a wedding photographer. Now, I don't do wedding photography anymore. I still take those inquiries when they come in because I have a capable team that's behind me to run that. But I do enjoy the corporate events. So, banks, offices, NGOs, things like that. I enjoy that kind of work because it's photojournalistic. You get to learn a lot and you get to meet really interesting people, and then you broaden your personal networks in really really interesting ways. So that's why I still handle this kind of work. And then plus I feel that I owe it up to you guys that if I'm going to continue as a sales coach and as a business consultant, I have to remain a practitioner. So it's important for me that while I'm offering these sorts of coaching and consulting services, I actually have to be selling something on my own apart from selling consultancy services. So that's the reason why I'm still involved in selling financial products and also in selling media and other kinds of consulting services, because I don't want to be one of those people, one of those gurus in quote, who teach you how to learn something or how to do something without actually being a professional in those things themselves. So, yeah, that's why I keep mentioning other businesses, other charities, and things like that that we're providing media coverage for. In this case, was photos, videos, and live streaming on their on Microsoft Teams and on their Facebook page. Yeah, because different British Council teams have really vibrant Facebook communities. So Facebook is not dead. So for those of you who think Facebook is dead, it's on a need by need basis or on a case by case basis. So you might be an organization like the British Council, for instance, who has a vibrant Facebook community, or they find ways to use Facebook to market their activities and then for outreach to stakeholders. So it depends. So for your own business, maybe if you're a wedding planner, maybe Facebook is dead. But for NGOs, I guess Facebook is still alive and vibrant. So when it comes to social media, there is no hard yes or no. The answer is it depends. Okay, so like I said, the event was on inclusive education and looking at the needs of people living with disabilities. So, how do we meet their needs and how do we inculcate them into the Nigerian education system? That was the question, pretty much. So, I explored issues around the needs of the visual and the auditory impaired. We're trying to move away from saying deaf and dumb and blind. And well, regardless of whatever you think about these sorts of things, it looks like these are the more polite or respectful way that these sorts of individuals, prefer to be, individuals who are differently able. This is how they prefer to be addressed. So we don't say deaf and dumb anymore. There are some people who took serious exception to the deaf and the dumb thing. So it's not going to be charitable to say, no, when you say dumb, we don't mean dumb like you're stupid. We just mean dumb like you can't talk. So it's still going to be charitable, uncharitable rather. So people for the who are visual and auditory impaired, how do we cater for their needs in the school system, primary school, secondary school, and upwards? Then there was a case study on cerebral palsy sufferers and their ability to learn, and how we can also include them into the Nigerian schooling experience. Then there was also some talk about tertiary education for people living with disabilities, because there's some good work out there about this is how you incorporate them into play school, primary school, secondary school. But then what about senior secondary school, universities, master's programs, those sorts of things. So, with that, we had to look at the state of Nigerian universities. How do we make accommodation for the physical challenges that people have in moving around universities, or are the teaching and learning styles, are they flexible enough to cope with people who have different learning modes and styles? Because I just spoke about people with cerebral palsy. People, extreme sufferers of cerebral palsy, they can't sit still, they have poor muscular control and coordination, they can't write, they can't type. So how do you make accommodation for these sorts of issues? Then there were also the issues of what next to do after education. How do we absorb them into the workforce so that we can get the most out of Nigeria's human capital resources and also lend these people some dignity to their lives, because we can't keep resigning them to begging all the time, or resigning them to be beneficiaries of alms and charity. So, summary, what I learned from that whole thing is Nigeria has a robust policy framework, but the problem is it's yet to be implemented. So we have schools for people living with disabilities. It looks like Lagos State carries has the most number of schools, if I remember correctly. And then there are requirements in teaching guidelines and modifications to curricula and exam taking practices, so that they support for these sorts of people, people who are visual or auditory impaired, and other kinds of what's it called? Other kinds of disabilities. The ones that don't show physically. Like one of the panelists spoke out that you could have extreme cognitive learning disabilities. People don't really see that, I guess, until you open your mouth. And let's see what else. So anyway, those sorts of things. So, as usual, for my dear country, Nigeria, implementation is lagging seriously behind, even though we have all the wonderful policy in place. And so there was a larger question of who is responsible for advancing public policy when it comes to people living with disabilities. That was a question that was kind of thrown up in the air. And anyway, why am I going to all this on a business podcast? The reason why I'm mentioning this is because we're not just business people, but soon we're going to become people in charge of shaping the policy landscape in our different countries, whether it's America, Australia, United Kingdom, Iran, wherever. And I'm not just trying to sound wishful or anything, but the thing is, uh, folks like us who are concerned with business and personal development, by virtue of the fact that we're bright, we're entrepreneurial, and we like to get things done, That's what sets us apart from other people. Other people like to sit and talk, but people who are business minded, we like to get shit done because that's how we get paid, or that's how we see the resources. Sorry, the results that give us the buzz, like we're getting stuff done. So we like to get things done. So eventually, we're the ones who are going to be in charge of our countries, our counties, our local governments, or whatever it is that you have in your country. And so the time is coming. We're still young right now, 20, 30, 40, but the time is coming. We need to start having informed perspectives on other things in society beyond personal development and business growth. So that's why I was mentioning that. Anyway, sorry for the long intro. Now let's get back to the main event. Let's get back to the crux of the show. And we're going to look at pros and cons. So, should we be marketing first and do the lab later, or should we do it the other way? Now, if we're going to do marketing first, sales led activities first, it's going to help us achieve market validation. Now, remember, when I say market validation over here on the show, or if you hear most people talk about market validation, product market fit, those sorts of things, we're just trying to answer the question, this idea that I have, this lab that I want to set up in my city, in my local government, in my wherever, is there a market for it? Is this thing in demand? Do people think it is a good idea? We need to answer all these questions because buildings are involved, reagents are involved. What else? Buildings, reagents, equipment, all kinds of things. So, if it was in the Nigerian context, you definitely were going to be spending millions and millions and millions. I'd say tens of millions just to set this up going. Except if you're setting up on a small scale, maybe it's a room and one or two labs, and you start with collecting blood, stool, and saliva samples before you go up to the real heavy stuff. But bottom line is the capital outlay that is required for these kinds of businesses might be huge or not, depending on who you are, how much money you have, how well connected you are, or how well capitalized you are. So market validation, really, really important. So market validation, in this case, we're just going to do marketing and sales motions, prospective activities, basically. We're going out there, interacting with people in the market, putting out feelers, letting them know this is what we intend to do, doing some research. All of this will allow us to test whether there's any market demand for this. Because you might do this and find out that in your own local government, they already have 20 diagnostics labs, and because of that they're struggling to be profitable and things like that, and that might give you a sense that okay, this is not a good idea to enter into this market, because in my local government, in my city, in my state, in my whatever, we already have 50 of these other businesses and each of them is struggling. There is not enough support from hospitals or people coming in to take lab tests or do pregnancy tests or whatever, not enough to keep payroll and to make this profitable. So market validation, we need to know that now. So those are the pros. Sorry, the pros. Yeah, we're doing pros and cons. I said prawns. Hilarious. Okay, so those are the pros. Marketing first will help us achieve market validation. Is this a good business idea to even get involved in the first place? And two, it's going to help us to build anticipation. It's going to help us generate buzz and interest in the community or other stakeholders or friends, family members, associates before we open the lab. So that's going to help. If you have buzz before you open, it might help to get the ball rolling. And you might also potentially secure a client base before the actual launch. You might be talking to people here and there. And let's say your uncle runs a hospital and he says, you know what, you've always been a bright young man, you've always been a bright young woman. When you set up this lab, let's start you off with processing blood samples only. If you do really good with blood, okay, no, let's do it the other way. Urine samples only. So if you do good with urine and saliva, then later on we can expand the services to include blood, include poop, include pregnancy, include stem cells, and spinal fluid or whatever. So you might be able to build some anticipation, get some demand. Then also, if you're going to do advanced marketing activities and sales-led motions, you might be able to attract investors or partnerships. You're talking to someone like, oh, this is a good idea. Oh, by the way, I have an extra 2 million here. I have an extra 1M. I have an extra 5M. It's just lying fallow. Looks like what you're doing, what you've done so far with the research. Sounds like this is a good idea. So how do I get on board? This 1M that I have, how do I sow it into your enterprise? What do I get in return? How are we going to be partners, or how do I get equity? So you get a chance to start having these sorts of conversations to attract investors or more partnerships. And then doing it ultimately is the most cost-effective way to get into business because the initial marketing efforts are going to be less costly. So going around, driving to people, picking up the phone, making phone calls. For those of you who are questionnaire people, I have no problem with questionnaires. I just think it's a mistake to put the questionnaire first, but that's a podcast episode for another day. But anyway, questionnaire people, research people, you know yourselves. Doing the initial research, you're going to spend way less than going out and trying to raise 20 or 30 M to start off your first laboratory. Now, on the other end, if you secure the lab first and then try to advertise for customers later, you're going to be operationally ready because on day one, the lab is going to be there, the technicians will be there, the equipment will be there. Someone can walk in and say, I need to drop a poop sample uh, for my hospital, but the hospital is far away. So, can I poop here? You guys bag it, test it, and then I take it to the hospital. If someone comes in with that conversation, you can say, "Yeah, sure, I'm ready. Can you just step into this toilet and poop in this bowl and then pay this amount and we'll handle the rest?" So, if you get the lab first, you're operationally ready. When people hit you up, poop, saliva, blood, pregnancy test, whatever, you're good to go. Then, sorry, forgive me, I'm sniffling. Still have the cold. In fact, I think tomorrow I'll just take my baby to the hospital and get him sorted and then get me sorted as well because I can't keep going all over the place. I'm sniffling and clearing my throat. Okay. Yeah. So operational readiness. Yeah. So if you set up the building first, you get all the permits and everything. You're ready. People hit you up. You're good to go. Then it also helps with credibility and trust because you're going to have a fully functional lab from the get go. And it might make people, especially in this part of the world in Nigeria, people will feel like, man, this guy is legit. Like, I went to the lab. He had 5 members of staff. The thing was well air conditioned. All the machines were there. I could see the blood taking this. I could see that. Can you imagine? They even have this scanner. They have that scanner. They have that. In this part of the world, in Nigeria, that's really, really impressive for someone to come in and see all this fancy stuff and they'll be like, man, this boy is legit. I can trust him. Or this girl is legit, as the case may be. Because Mutsambiwa actually is a girl, Bernadette Mutsambiwa. Yeah, so I should be using she actually. Okay, yeah, so help enhance your credibility and trust. Then it's also going to lead to efficient service delivery because clients are going to be able to access services promptly. Somebody walks in here and the person says, back to the initial example, I need to drop a sample at my hospital. The hospital is far away, it's on the way to work. Can I just poop here and you guys test it and everything? I'll take the results to the hospital. You're going to be able to do that efficiently. You'll be able to say, yes, can you step this way, please? Go into this toilet, poop into this container, and when you're done, you bring it back to us, and we'll do this, and the bill is blah blah blah, and then you hand it over to the person pays. That's efficient service delivery versus somebody walks up to you and tells you the problem, and then you say, well, you know what, I'm still in the research stage, or we've only started out doing blood now, so can you come back in 2 or 3 weeks when we have the poo poo division up and running or something like that. I'm sorry, this is not my line of business, so I don't know what you would call the people who handle the poop, or the people who handle the poop. Are they different from the people who handle the blood? Are different from the people who handle saliva? Anyway, I have no idea, but anyway, you get my point. Efficient service delivery, you'll be able to be up and running, sharp, 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 because you have everything in place. And then that can also lead to word of mouth referrals. If the guy is happy about how you guys handle his poop, you gave him test results within 30 minutes. He finishes with the hospital, and the hospital says, "Oh, now your poop was well tested," and blah blah blah. The person can lead to word of mouth referrals. The person can say, "Oh, Bernadette's diagnostics lab, best in town. She has absolutely everything. If you need a poop sample done, a spit sample, swab sample, blood sample, go to Bernadette." So that can give you, word of mouth referrals. Then, of course, ultimately immediate revenue because you're up and running. So the person comes on the drop a sample of poop. You take the poop, you collect the money, you have revenue because the services are already being offered, and so you're good to go. And so you're going to start getting early returns on investment. But if you do it the other way, you're doing the research. If research takes if you use a month to research and talk to people and then things like that, figure out market demand and supply, then that is time that you may not have spent in making any money. So, whether you look at it one way or another, validate the idea first, or just go ahead and set up the business first. There are pros and there are cons in either direction, which is why, um, I answer these questions the way that I do. Like, hey, it works either way. You want to make sure that we have product market fit, that is market demand, is market validation, there's whatever it is we want to call it. You want a green light before we go ahead. Yeah, sure, that can be done. And in the future episodes, we're going to explore how to do it. But then, for someone who says, look, I have a hunch this is already a good idea. I already have 20M to go right now. I have 10M in savings. I got 5 from my aunt. I got 6 from my uncle. And I got 1 from another investor. I'm good to go. How do we begin? That can also be done as well. You start off buying the buildings and then the regions and everything else. So it depends on you. Just listen to this episode again, weigh the pros and cons, and you'll be able to make an informed decision. But the main considerations are basically market research has to be involved, whether at the beginning or later on, because you have to conduct a thorough market research to understand what the local demand is, what the competition is, other hospitals, sorry, not hospitals, diagnostic laboratories, what's the competition that they're facing, how profitable are they, things like that, what are the potential challenges. You need to know all of these things before you start having an effective advertising or marketing campaign. So you can either do this market research in the beginning before you set up, or do it after you have set up. Either way, market research, sales-led activities are going to be involved. Then financial preparedness. Running a diagnostics lab is not going to be. It's not going to be beans. It's not going to be a small thing. I think at the very least you're going to need 3 rooms. You're going to need a reception where people can wait. You're going to need a toilet where people can poop, pee. You're going to need a drawing room where people can take blood. What else? You're going to need that fancy refrigerating room where you keep blood samples and pee samples and what else? Then apart from that, you're going to need one more room for bloodletting where you actually take the blood. So if my guess is correct, by the way, I'm leaving this to those of you who have medical experience, who you're the ones who tell us what's up. But my own guess as a layman, I'm thinking at the very least you need a building with 5 rooms or a bungalow with 5 rooms or whatever. And going by property rates, of course, they're going up. So Abuja, expensive city to be in. Lagos, expensive city to be in. Metropolitan centers, expensive. I'm sure that for Bernadette, Mozambique, it's also the same way as well. Except if you're setting up a diagnostics lab in your village or in your local government. In that case, is that really going to be a profitable enterprise? I mean, the people in the village, I mean, how much money do they have to pay for poop samples and pay for blood samples? But anyway, excuse me, that's a different question. Let's not well, what should I say? Discriminate against the poor. So financial preparedness. You need to know how much moolah do I have? How much money do I have? Am I going to be able to pull through with this once I start? Then business planning. It's really, really important. Some people believe in comprehensive business plans. You write it out, you type it out, you double bind it, you single bind it, whatever. I'm not a comprehensive business type person, but comprehensive business plans are important, especially if you're going to be raising investment, financing either from banks, private individuals, or whatever. They're going to want to see a comprehensive plan. But for me, I think a basic outline is good to go. You can start off with a basic outline, and then when things get more legit, in quote, or more serious, you can come up with a comprehensive plan. When you start liaising with the FCDA, that's if you're in Abuja, that's the Federal Capital Development Authority. Yeah, those are the people that will give you okay, well, I shouldn't speculate. Okay, let me go ahead and speculate. It's not like I have a doctor here with me. So I'm assuming the FCDA, those are the people that are going to give you the permission to say, yes, you can set up a diagnostics lab, but you can't set it up in this kind of environment. You have to keep it far away from a school or from a park or from a this or from a power line. So all that is FCDA. So when you start interacting with FCD and then all these other people, I guess a comprehensive business plan might be necessary. But either way, some sort of business plan, comprehensive or basic outline, is going to be required before you start all the activity or after you set up this. And of course, in that, you're going to have a goal, see who the target market is, the strategies you're going to run through to help get your business up and going. Now, business plan is not just for fancy. We need it because it actually drives the strategy that we're going forward with, which is why I'm a basic outline kind of guy. Because basic outline, you can keep that on your phone, you can share it over WhatsApp. People can look at it and say, okay, we are okay on this, we are behind on that, we need to make effort on this. But then comprehensive, it's plenty work. It's 50 pages. It has plenty of graphs and this and this and that. And trying to run a business off of that day to day might be hard. Except if you guys are all well developed, you have board meetings and blah blah blah. Anyway, so business plan is going to be required either before you set up everything or after. Then we also have to pay attention to regulatory compliance. Dear Bernadette Mutambiwa, regulatory compliance really important because I can set up my consulting practice in my children's bedroom. It's not a problem. It might not look as credible, but I'm not going to run into any problems. You, on the other hand, you can't use your children's bedroom or use the boys' quarters at the back of your house. You have to comply with regulatory requirements for diagnostics labs. So you have to register with the Corporate Affairs Commission. Well, in Nigeria, Corporate Affairs Commission. I'm not sure what the equivalent organization is in your own country, Bernadette. Then there's also going to be regulations around. Okay, I'm assuming the Medical Disciplinary and Ethics Committee in your country might have regulations on these sorts of things as well. There might also be other national legislation. In Nigeria, there's NAFDAC. That's the food and drug. What are they called? Anyway, those are the people who take care of making sure that when you're setting up a food factory or drug company or stuff like that, that you are complying with all the regulations and all that. So in Nigeria, you have to comply. You have to go and talk with NAFDAC, find out what the regulations are. Then there are also ISO certifications. That's International Standards Organization or something like that. But anyway, ISO. That's the right. What's it called? Acronym. Even if I got the meaning wrong. So ISO certifications out there for treating specimens, for handling samples, for handling drugs, blah blah blah. Like I said, look at national legislation, try and see what international best practice is or national best practice. So, dear Bernadette, you're going to have to comply with a lot, and I'm assuming that you already have a medical background because it's going to be foolhardy for an ordinary guy like me, a layperson, in relative terms, that's relative to medicine and all that, to go and set up a diagnostics lab. Remember that for sales and business development, that what's it called? Product specialization, product or service mastery is the beginning. So if you're going to set up this sort of thing, excuse me, I'm assuming that not only I'm assuming that you're competent, you have all the certifications in place, and you know what it is that you're doing. Don't start handling people's poop and people's pee and blood and spinal samples and all that just based off of stuff you've seen on the internet, because that's how most of us get involved in business. You're like, oh, I'm good with taking photographs. How do I become a photographer? You enter into Google how to become a wedding photographer. You hit enter, and then whatever Google says, you start doing. So for businesses like this, for your medical laboratory, you cannot do that. So ultimately, whichever way that you pick, do the market validation first, or you set up the building first and buy all the equipment. You're going to need a balanced approach. There's going to be a phase strategy. There's going to be some initial marketing and sales led activities. And then, of course, you have to make sure that you're market ready and you're operationally ready. So it's going to be a balanced approach. So you'll find that in real life is neither A or B. You find that you might go ahead and put the lease on the building while you're still talking to stakeholders and friends, families, and associates and other people in the market to try and gauge demand. So you find that in real life, it's going to be a little bit mixed. But to make answering the question easier, we're going to start with the idea that we want to validate first. And then after we're done with podcast episodes exploring validation, then we'll come up with podcast episodes exploring the other approach, which is we have set up the building now. We are ready to collect poop and blood samples and spinal fluid and all and swab samples. We're ready to collect all of that now. How do we go about looking for customers? So that's all for today, folks. And remember, connect with me on WhatsApp or Telegram. You can hit me up on 080-6466-2140. So you can call, text, WhatsApp, SMS, whatever. Just hit me up. Then also connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Tavishima Ayede, yours truly, the host of the show. You can confirm the spelling of my name or my email address on the website where you're listening to this episode or the profile of the podcast app where you're listening to my voice. So thanks for your time and attention. I'll catch you guys at the next episode.